Hello dear viewers, welcome to my channel Corner Sewing. Today we will learn to make a garara for a 45-year-old. A weight of 70 kilograms, hip round of 41 inches, waist round of 38 inches and the length of the garara will be 41 inches. This is after adding 2 inches for wearing heels. Stay with me and learn how to plan, draft and sew the garara. We will need 8 yards of banarsi material. This is the banarsi material, and the important thing about this material is that it's a two-way design. That means that there is no direction of the design, and so it is convenient to use the fabric. I've also bought 2 yards of fabric for making the tunic, and this is a polyester based fabric. The banarsi fabric is also polyester based, and this is also polyester based. So we have about 1 yard of cotton fabric for the waistband, and we have 2.5 yards of soft cotton fabric for the lining. So first of all, let's plan the different parts of the garara and identify their names. So the first part of the garara is the waistband, and this waistband should be large enough to be able to pull it up over the hips. Then below the waistband is the kunda. Now the kunda consists of a main rectangular fabric and then 2 kalis. This is kali number 2 and this is kali number 3. So in addition to the kali, we have a Roomali. So this is kali number 2, this is kali number 1, and this is the main body of the fabric, and this here is the Roomali. And so the entire thing is known as the kunda. So this at the top is the waistband, this here is the kunda, this is the Roomali, and the kunda consists of the main fabric, main rectangular fabric, plus 1 kali and then 2 kalis for adults. In addition to that, then at the bottom here is the goth. This is the goth, and the goth has a bias, and so the fabric has a bias like this. So the goth is cut on a bias, whereas the kunda is cut on the straight grain, and this is also cut on the straight grain. So these are the different parts and the names of the different parts of the. Now we will see how we will lay out the fabric and for the pattern pieces. So for the sake of understanding, we have taken 8 yards of the banarsi fabric, and so this line here is representing the 8 yards, and each little notch here is representing 1 yard. So this is 1 yard, 2 yards, etc. And this here is representing 36 inches. So the first thing we will do is that we will take out 2 yards of the fabric, and this 2 yards of the fabric will then form the various parts of the kunda. And out of the remaining 6 yards, then we will cut out two parts. This is goth number 1, and this is going to be goth number 2. So remember that we cut out 2 yards of the fabric for the kunda. Now let's see how are we going to use the fabric for cutting out the kunda. Now the kunda has a length of 18 inches and a width of 23 inches for the main rectangular piece. So the main rectangular piece will be something like this. This is like the main piece, the main body, and this is the straight grain of the fabric. So we will cut the one piece of the kunda for the right side, and then we will cut another piece of the kunda for the left side. So one for the right side, one for the left side. Now we have to cut the kalis. So the kalis are going to be cut like this. So there will be like a kali which will be cut like this, and then a mirror image like this. And these will all be 18 inches in length. Similarly, this is going to be 18 inches in length and 23 inches in width. This is the main rectangular piece that we will be cutting to make the main body of the kunda. And the kunda will have attachments of two kalis, one on either side. So we have to cut 4 kalis, and they have to be, the two have to be the mirror image of the other. So this is number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. Now, addition to this is one set of kalis, and then we have to cut another set of kalis. So the other set of kalis is going to be cut like this. This will be a narrower kali as compared to the first one, and they will be cut like this. So there will be 2 in one direction and 2 in the other direction. So 2 have to be the mirror image of the other direction. In addition, we have to cut the Roomali. So the Roomali is going to be cut like this and cut like this. Because it's a unidirectional, it's a design, there's no difference whether you cut it upside down or whatever. So it will make no difference. So this is how we are going to cut out the kunda from the 2 yards of fabrics that we cut out previously from the main fabric of 8 yards. So now we are going to look at the individual pieces that we are going to cut out. So the first piece that we will cut out is the waistband, and the waistband will be cut in such a way with the cotton piece that the width will be 46 inches plus seam, and the length will be 4 inches. So it doesn't matter if you have to join small pieces together to make the waistband. It doesn't really matter because it is well hidden. So next we have to figure out the measurement of the kunda. So for the measurement of the kunda, we have identified that there will be a rectangular main body of the kunda, which will be right in the center, and this rectangular portion will be 23 inches wide plus seam. So this is the width, and the length will be 18 inches plus seam. So this is the length. In addition to the main rectangular piece, we will have a kali number 1. The kali number 1 is going to be wide, and this kali is going to be 4 inches wide at the top and 8 inches wide at the bottom. And it will have a length. So this is the width at the top, this is the width at the bottom, and it will be 18 inches plus seam length. So for all the measurements, just add the seam. The other part of the kunda is the kali number 2. So the kali number 2 is narrow as compared to the kali number 1, and the kali number 2 will be 1 inch wide at top, and again you have to add the seam. It will be 3 inches wide at the bottom, add seam, and it will be 18 inches in length. And finally, the kunda will contain a Roomali. So the Roomali will be 1 inches at the top wide. It will be 6 inches wide at the bottom, and it will be 8 inches. In the end, we come to the final part, which is the goat, or the bottom part of the garara, the lower leg of the garara. And the goat width will be anything from 60 to 70 inches depending upon how many inches you can get after you make the bias cutting of the fabric. And the length is going to be 24 inches, which will include, this is the length. There will be some variation in the length as we sew along, and this will contain plus 0.5 seam allowance at the top and plus 1.5 inches seam for the hem. So this concludes the measurements of the garara as we are going to make it. So this is a paper cutout of the kali, which is part of the kunda, and this paper cutout is showing different parts of the kali. So this is the top part, which contains the seam, and this is the bottom part also, which contains the seam. This is the straight edge of the kali, and this is the slanted edge of the kali. So because the bottom part is slightly wider as compared to the top part, so it slants on one side, and this is the side where it slants, and this is the straight edge, and this is the straight grain of the fabric. Make sure that you put the proper identification on these kalis so that you can use them afterwards, and it's important to make these paper cutouts because it is easier. Now the important thing is that when you are laying it out on the fabric, then the two kalis, so now these are identical kalis, but the kalis should be placed in such a way so that there is a mirror kind of an image of the like this. So they have to be cut in such a way that there is a mirror image formed. So two kalis from this paper pattern and then two kalis from the other paper pattern, and always remember that the slanted edge will be attached to the straight edge. That's a principle and a basic rule. So basically this is going to be the kali number 1. So here we have the kali number 2, and this kali number 2 is for the same pattern. Make sure that you put the identification on marks on the pattern, paper pattern, so that you can use them later on as well. So it has a top end, which is the narrow end, and it has a bottom end, which is the wider end, and it has a straight edge like this, and then it has a slanted edge, which is like this. This is a slanted edge or the bias edge, and this is the straight edge on here. So again, when you place this, when you are using this to cut the fabric pieces, make sure that it is done as a mirror image. So two pieces will be cut from the paper pattern on this side, and two will be cut from the paper pattern on this side, so that it lays properly against the kunda. So if supposing that you are stitching with the fabric which has got where the wrong side and the right side are very similar, it doesn't matter if you make a mistake. But if you're cutting it on a fabric such as the banarsi fabric, where the wrong side and the right side are extremely different to each other and you cannot use one for the other, it's very important that you remember this rule, that you will be cutting 4 pieces of each kali. So 4 pieces of the broader kali and 4 pieces of the smaller kali, and or the narrower kali, and 2 pieces have to be the mirror image of the other piece, and they should not all be facing the same way, so that you can attach them. Finally, you have the paper pattern of the Roomali, and as far as the Roomali is concerned, there's a narrow top edge, and there is a broader bottom edge. So this will be cut according to the measurements that you want, and there will be a slant or a bias on both sides, and there will be a straight line in the middle. And this is not like the kali, where in the kali there is one side is straight and one side is slanted or on the bias, but in the Roomali the two slanted, this is a slanted edge and this is a slanted or the bias edge, and this is the straight one in the middle. So you will be cutting out 2 pieces of the Roomali, one for the front of the kunda and one for the back of the kunda. Now for each and every one of the pieces of the kunda, i.e. the main rectangular fabric, kali number 1, kali number 2, as well as the Roomali, you are going to cut lay down these pattern pieces on the lining fabric, and cut out similar pieces from the lining fabric as well as from the main fabric. So here we have 4 pieces of kali number 2, which is the narrower kali, and as you can see, that it has a narrow edge at the top, which is according to the measurements that I have already given you, and a wider edge at the bottom. And the length is 18 inches as the length of the kunda. And I have already prepared these by attaching the lining, which is here, and by zigzagging the edges to control the fray of the fabric. So I'm going to cut out all the tiny threads also, so that it becomes very neat. This here is the Roomali, and there are two pieces of the Roomali, and each Roomali has been prepared by attaching the lining at the back. This is a cotton based lining, and the Roomali is broader at the bottom edge, smaller at the top edge, and it fits in between the two kundas. So there will be one Roomali for the front and one Roomali for the back. These are not mirror images because both the sides are slanted. This side is also slanted and this side is also slanted. So we don't need to have a mirror image when you're cutting the fabric. It can just be cut on any side. But this is the straight grain of the fabric in the middle, and this is a slant. This is the slant of the bias and the bias. And remember, the principle in the kunda is that the bias edge is always attached to the straight edge. So this is the basic principle that we have to remember when we are attaching the kalis and forming the kunda for the top, because each kunda consists of the right kunda will have 5 parts, the left kunda will have 5 parts, and they will be connected together in the middle with the Roomali. And so the 5 parts will consist of the main rectangular fabric, and then 2 wide kalis or kali number 1 and 2 narrow kalis or kali number 2. So these will be the 5 parts of the kunda on the right side and on the left side. So we have these 2 kalis for adults. For children, say for if the child is older than 5 years, then we put in 1 kali just to give it a little bit of flow and grace to the garment. And for small children, we don't add any kali, and it's a much more narrower garment when it is completed. So here we have the finished kunda, and this is the main rectangular body of the kunda. This is kali number 1, which is narrower at the top and broader at the bottom. And this is kali number 2, which is narrower as compared to this kali. And this is the Roomali, which has a slanted edge on both sides and is joined together joins the 2 kundas together. So the kunda is then it's stitched at the bottom here, and this will form the crotch of the garment. And this is the top end of the garment, which will be attached to the waistband, and this is the bottom end of the garment, which will be then attached to the goat. So this fabric now is the 3 yards of the goat that we cut out from the main fabric. And what we've done is we've taken the 3 yards, and these are the 2 folds, and we just folded it here lengthwise and stitched it across. So I finished it with some zigzag stitch here, and so this is the whole entire fabric, and the wrong side of the fabric you can see. Now what you do is, the side that you stitch together, then you have to lay it out in the form of a triangle, and this side of the triangle is going to be the length of the goat. So this side is going to be the length of the goat. So this side of the fabric is going to be the length of the goat. This is going to be the length of the goat of the garara, and the garara will just have one seam here, one seam at the other end, and another seam. And what we will do now, these 2 edges, these free edges, which were actually part of these 2 edges here, these 2 edges have been split open in the form of a triangle here, and now these 2 edges are going to be stitched together all the way across, and this will form what we call a lifafa or an envelope. So let me do that, and then let me show you what it is. For those viewers who may have difficulty understanding this, I plan to make a separate video just on how to make a lifafa and how to then cut the lifafa. So now that we have stitched this part, as you can see, if you remember, that this was a triangle that had formed after the stitching of this seam, and then we had taken it up here to make a length of 25 inches, and then we joined these 2 seams together all the way down here, and then it goes under and then it goes right up till that corner here. So now the length of this goat has been reduced. We started off with 3 yards of fabric, and the width has now been reduced to 75 inches. The length is 25 inches and the width now is 75 inches. So this method of creating a bias fabric from a straight fabric is known as the lifafa method or the envelope method. The method has a number of advantages. First of all, it allows you to do the bias cutting in a reasonable space and with reasonable accuracy. So by the lifafa method, now we have cut the goat of one side, and now we are going to proceed to cut the goat of the other side. So these are two sides to it. This is the right side of the garment and this is the wrong side of the garment. And so the goat will just have 3 seams, and what we will do is that we will try to make sure that the seams come at the back of the garment and not at the front of the garment. So after completing the cutting of the goat on one side, now we're going to cut the goat on the other side. So as you can see, this is the finished product of the garara, and the gathering is placed in such a way that the garara is flowing beautifully as the person is walking, and there is no hitching up or pulling up of the garment either on the sides or in the front or at the back. And this is what we want to achieve in a traditional garara.